I'd never call it future-proof because it's tech,
Yes.
right? It's so fast-moving. There really isn't a future-proof thing. But cloud isn't going anywhere. In fact, it is where everything is going, and there's a lot of good reason behind that.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the 101 Digital Podcast. I'm Craig Myers, CEO of 101 Digital, and today we have on actually one of our employees, Ben Ebert. He's our Director of Operations, and we wanted to talk through the 3 C's of cloud that we call over here. So we've got collaboration, communication, and continuity. And we've been moving a lot of our customers kind of from on-prem infrastructure now to cloud, and obviously there's a lot of benefits to that. So really want to kind of just talk with you about it because obviously you're a big part of that. You're talking with the customers, getting them ready, and then moving everything for them, right? So kind of starting on the the collaboration side, right? That's the one that most people I think kind of envision because it builds efficiency for their company, right? So we see people using Teams, Slack, and then kind of SharePoint kind of all together to be able to work on files together versus the old way on-prem file servers. People would have this shared drive, they would go into it, and if they were editing it, only one person could be in it at a time, right? So that person would have to get out of it, another person jumps in. Today, that's not the case, right? So what are we doing as 101 Digital to kind of get our customers ready, and then what is kind of that process, kind of the shortened version of it. And then, what benefits have you seen?
Sure, yeah. Everything starts with the conversation, trying to figure out, where their improvements could actually be seen. Folks are coming from traditional on-prem systems with a desire and a newfound need to be remote or hybrid in some regard. So they have this desire to share and work on data at the same time, anywhere they are. That's one of the real big asks. How can we accomplish this securely and efficiently? And something that's not going to be a really, big learning curve for current staff or client base, those kind of situations. So the conversation is really need-based. And then, how do we architect this movement so that it's got the least, impact from a change management perspective for the clients to be able to quickly move data from one place to another, almost always into cloud storage or SharePoint of that sort of nature. To what's your as-is infrastructure looking like now, and get it in a state that's controllable, scalable, has all of the right permissions that they need, the right access by the right people. We just build that out first through a conversation. A couple of iterations later, we have kind of the tree diagram that we need to be able to build that cloud infrastructure for them and start to move them strategically into that. It's a stressful situation, I think, for a lot of companies that don't have either prior cloud experience or employees that know how to do the thing that they do right now.
They haven't done it before, whereas we've done it for multiple customers over multiple years. So something that pretty much everyone on our team has at least once or twice, done.
Sure. Yeah. That's kind of the benefit of, a small team of technicians that we all get to do a lot of the same things and we learn from each other pretty quickly. So any of us that have that experience of bringing somebody from, an on-prem to a cloud, we share that pretty quickly and learn how to do it together.
One of the first things you said too is securely, right? So in this, I guess I'll just call it legacy on-prem world, to say access files remotely, you typically had to connect to a VPN, right? To get to the, say data center or home base, whatever you would want to call it, to get to those files, right? Which, as everyone knows, connecting to VPNs for some people isn't always the easiest thing. Plus, you have to make sure that it's, working properly, that it's all set up. Again, with SharePoint, you negate that, right? Now they're connecting directly to Microsoft, authenticating directly to Microsoft. It's just, it breaks down a lot of the barriers that were there previously with on-prem infrastructure and just setups.
For sure. Alongside that fear of the unknown of how do I access it, is it going to be cumbersome? And it's usually a lot more streamlined than anything that they've tried to do before. You're absolutely right about the client VPN solution. and then maybe even a remote desktop experience for them. All of those things get pushed aside for more simple yet still secure, and oftentimes, if not always, protected behind multi-factor authentication. So there are a lot of wins here by reducing these points of failure.
Yeah, 100%. Because again, with it being up in the cloud, it's almost always going to be accessible. You don't have to worry about your own hardware potentially failing. Consistently buying new servers, whether you're on a 3-5 year life cycle. Making sure things are in warranty. You alleviate all of that pain by going up to something like SharePoint, which again just allows for much better collaboration. The next thing that we had already kind of early in this mentioned was Teams and Slack, right? So that's a little bit on the communication side, but there's also voice over IP, right? So obviously here at 101 Digital, we support both Teams and Slack and Zoom and all the other different types of collaboration platforms. But also, again, the voice over IP. Today we resell and support Sangoma, which our team has been using for probably 10 plus years now, and it allows for, again, a cloud environment where you can take, say, a physical phone and move it anywhere and still be able to use it. Whereas these old on-prem phone systems, you really had to make sure that everything was housed in the same place and or have VPN connections, again, from facility to facility. So can you kind of just touch on what are some of the things that you're seeing with our customers of even moving them, say, from a legacy on-prem phone system to cloud, or maybe it's their first phone system, or again, maybe the first time they're using Teams. I think by now most people are using Teams or Slack, but really getting them moved to these platforms that really help them collaborate, and communicate better.
Yeah, it's really the versatility of VoIP that when we bring that into their organization, they start to experience that not only can they use a physical phone should they need it, but there's the desktop application, there's a mobile phone, soft phone aspect to it, which can be life-changing for a lot of folks that are used to using their own personal phones for business purposes. They don't like the idea, but it's been unavoidable to have their number out there. Well, the soft phone application allows you to be operating from your business line, your business extension, all these call rules that we have that make it a very seamless feel to the whole business phone aspect. So that versatility alone, to be in the office, away from the office, is quite a perk to the VoIP platform. Not having to be tethered.
On that, one of the things that I just thought of too was voicemails to your email, right?
Oh, sure.
With an on-prem phone system. I mean, there's probably some out there that would do it for it, but again, just the simplicity of that functioning, how, if you're, again, away, you're going to see that voicemail and be able to just quickly play it from your email. Whereas before you may have to kind of dial into the phone system to pull up your voicemails and go through them that way.
Yeah, a little clunky. Yeah, no, it's different. You get the audio files sent to your email address, and a lot of this is highly customizable. So, and can be done on the fly by our technicians. Somebody doesn't have to be in front of the equipment to do so. There's a cloud dashboard, and we can manipulate the settings, changing office greetings and holiday greetings, hours of operations, any call forwarding, that kind of stuff. It all makes it very quick and efficient for us and for the client.
I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because as you were saying that, I'm thinking through how it is mutually beneficial to us and the customer to be in the cloud because of that maintenance aspect of it as well, right? It helps us keep our costs down for the customer, and then helps their, obviously, costs stay down too from multiple aspects. Again, not having hardware, you're not worrying about warranties and replacing the equipment.
Yeah.
With it being in the cloud, yes, you are paying a monthly, but you're the hope is that obviously the provider is always constantly updating things in the back end, which, again, for Sangoma, things are always getting better with it. But yeah, on the support side of it, it allows our team to quickly change any of their settings very quickly versus the, again, legacy phone systems on-prem. We would have to either remote into their environment somehow to get to the actual IVR settings and all those things. And now it's just so much easier.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what the pure cloud hosted systems, right? You also avoid any of the, natural disasters of power outage or an ISP outage or something like that. that would negatively impact an on-prem system. And some clients do need to maintain some type of on-premise equipment, and Sangoma is quite flexible in that they can handle that as well. But there are other redundancies at play here for those kind of clients that require that type of equipment, if it's call center based or
HIPAA compliant. Because we have a couple of those where they have to have the voicemail stay on-prem.
Yeah. But it's still pure VoIP platform. It is still highly customizable and accessible anywhere they are.
Reduces the failure points, which, I mean, again, that's the biggest kind of sell in cloud, right? You're really reducing kind of your surface area for failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the last thing kind of just with the collaboration side is, with Slack and Teams, and this kind of goes to collaboration, communication side, it's really both, is the ability to hook in a lot of different cloud platforms, right? So for us personally, we actually hook up our ticketing system to our Slack channel to kind of have a live stream of tickets that are coming in. It allows the technicians to have just a really good view of it. We also have on our CRM side, as sales are moving through the pipeline, everyone within that sales channel is kind of getting a update of what's going on. Say a prospect, we close them as a customer, we get an alert in there that that's happened, and it really just keeps everyone informed, right? Everyone's busy. It's really hard to always kind of follow up with communications, but when the systems are kind of updating the entire team, it's extremely beneficial. But that's not really possible. I mean, in some ways it can be, but if you have a bunch of these on-prem systems, it's typically harder. With a cloud-based system, they're usually built with API first, right? So they're already thinking this is going to be cloud-based. It's going to interact with other cloud platforms. And so again, kind of just on that communication and collaboration side, it's really tying all of that together.
Yeah, it's a big benefit to us for sure. Yeah, I don't care if you have 3 monitors. Something's taking up all of that real estate. And if you can have something, that has a lot of integrations and hook-ins from your other platforms, be able to consolidate that messaging for you, that's one crucial piece of collaborative software that you're going to use every day, all day. You're going to rely on that, and it'll carry over, obviously from your physical computer to your mobile phone, should you need to. And so to stay connected to the team when you need to be is really important to us.
Hey, that's another one right there. I mean, the mobile phone, right? Like with cloud platforms, it allows you to use a mobile phone, right? A lot of legacy on-prem stuff, they just don't have kind of those interfaces.
And they're not going to write them either for them.
All that stuff now, they essentially just negate, and it's just cloud moving forward. So, I mean, even say with QuickBooks, right? We've got a couple of customers that we've actually moved from on-prem to QuickBooks Online. Again, saving them money, but also, long-term saving them a lot of money because they don't have to have that on-prem infrastructure anymore.
Yeah. There's that life cycle, replacement cost, knowing that physical machine that anything is living on is going to need to be replaced.
And then I think the last one, which I personally would consider probably the most important, is continuity, right? Business continuity being that, if you were to have a catastrophic failure at your facility, whether it was a storm, natural disaster type thing, power outages, whatever it might be, or even just hardware failure in the sense of, hard drives fail all the time, power supplies fail all the time, whatever it might be. What is your business going to do, right? In some instances, it's not that big of a deal. You send people home, but that's all kind of, you would have had to make sure that you put all of that cloud infrastructure, or at least the ability to work remotely in the first place, right? So some things like, SD-WAN, sometimes you can have actually firewalls up in the cloud, Azure, Azure AD, again, SharePoint, we'll talk about all these things right now, but all of these things allow for continuity. Obviously, even backups, extremely important. Without backups, if you were to say have a server completely fail, you're restoring from backups, right? And say you are fully on-prem, now where are you restoring that to? That's kind of the thing people always forget. It's like, okay, it's good that you have the backup,
Still
what are you
equipment
doing?
it's got to go on to.
Yes. And if you don't just have an extra server laying around,
Mm-hmm.
you're ordering one. Lead times, as we've seen, can be, 7 to 14 days, or it can be a full month. In some regards, some networking equipment, we were seeing half a year, right?
Yeah,
Like
sure.
people aren't going to be able to be like, yeah, our business can stay down for 6 months and we'll be okay.
I don't think that's fitting anybody's business continuity or disaster recovery plan.
No. So I guess just really quick, because I think for us, it's kind of the most recent and most exciting that we've been doing for a lot of customers is transitioning from on-prem Active Directory to Azure AD. And, I'll give a little snippet if you want to add more to it, because, a lot of the people that may be listening to this don't fully understand the technical piece of it. But Active Directory by Microsoft is how all of the machines typically authenticate back to your infrastructure, right? So say, you go to your computer and you type in your username, and sometimes it's, your first name dot last name, or you have like a domain / your username, whatever it is that you're using to authenticate. That is authenticating back to typically an on-prem server, right? Some people have moved at least that aspect up to the cloud, and then it's a domain controller up in the cloud, but it's not Azure AD. We've been moving people to full Azure AD, which gets rid of all that legacy hardware and the legacy Active Directory. Now they're actually using their email address that everyone's familiar with. It's their same, email address and password in O365, Office 365. And that's now their authentication. It's also included as part of your Office licensing, right? So it's a no cost change, at least from a month to month. Yes, like there is the project cost that we associate with it, but yeah, I mean, can you just give some examples of how we've done that for customers and just the benefits they've seen? Because that's one that's like I truly have seen like a lot of benefits, and obviously we internally do as well. But yeah.
Sure. We definitely identify goodness of fit just to begin with, to make sure that the client has data that can and should be, in a file server in the sky. That typically means flat files. So if they're running application servers and things that are database driven, well, then maybe that has a need that shows for continued on-premise lifespan, or moved into true virtual servers, in the cloud. But if it's just flat file migration from an on-premise file server into SharePoint, that's a perfect case to do that kind of lift and movement into that environment. It takes advantage of a single sign-on capability that they haven't had before. The management of credentialed access and permissions is all done from the same dashboard. So again, we're streamlining not only what their experience as a user is, but our experience as technicians and how to manage efficiently. And whether that's additions or terminations for access in any regard to any of that. Outside of that, there's another piece of continuity that we would often recommend that'll couple journaling and archiving of email alongside of backing up their SharePoint site.
Most people don't think about that, how Microsoft's not backing up your email, right? It's like it's up in the cloud, but it's not being backed up.
Right. And even if you have, certain versions that you can revert back to because of SharePoint's innate structure, it's still not a pure backup.
Correct.
And so what do you do if? And that's what we try to help mitigate. We talk about all of those scenarios and those value adds for the client, again, based on a goodness of fit model, learning about what their business's needs are going to be, what those applications are, and if they can and should move into whatever appropriate cloud container it might be, if that's ultimately their decision to do. And it's not always the fastest process, but it's not also meant to be, because you want to talk about it as much as you can ahead of the execution to make sure that A, they're aware of what this change is going to look and feel like, and then B, so that it actually moves as smoothly as it can.
And it could also be a phased approach, which we've done for some customers that are larger, where even just getting them to Azure AD authentication was almost life-changing for them, right? Because they were authenticating to a really, really old AD server, and login times were slower. And again, because of like some people being remote, they were actually remoting into a machine versus just taking that machine with them.
Right.
So yeah, it really can revolutionize a lot of these environments. And another thing you mentioned too on the SSO side, so single sign-on. Again, kind of going back to the whole cloud thing, is if you use other applications, like for us, it allows us to sign into our ticketing system,
Hmm.
our remote monitoring management tool. Allows for much better security, because again, now you're tying everything back to your Microsoft authentication, which again, it's Microsoft. They're putting in the security posture. They're spending all the money on security versus you trying to have your own internal kind of security posture, making sure everyone's creating complex passwords. Microsoft's really helping you with all of that.
Yeah, the multi-factor authentication piece behind all of it. I mean, that's all critical for this to be a success. And there are a lot of clients that have a kind of hub and spoke um, business where they've got one central location and everybody else is tethered to that through site-to-site VPN or relying on client VPN to be able to authenticate, get access to their data, and that sort of thing. Moving into a cloud storage like SharePoint can help decentralize that access, yet still maintain the security posture that you need, either through compliance or what the business just demands. So this can be a really, really smart move for most businesses.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned compliance too, because that was another one that I hadn't thought about until just now. We have customers that have true compliance requirements, right? And again, Microsoft helps with that, whether it's the journaling, archiving, litigation hold. There's different things that
Hmm.
again within the cloud you can do. I mean, I got to imagine you could potentially do with Exchange, hosted Exchange as well, but we're not even going to go down that path because again, from a maintenance perspective, not something that anyone wants to do. So all of these types of cloud management, again, is just mutually beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess kind of the last thing here is, where do you think a lot of this cloud stuff is going? Like right now, I think the biggest thing is Azure AD, SharePoint to really help in collaboration. What do you think is kind of like the next thing that we're going to see customers really want to kind of shift maybe up into the cloud, or just something that's going to come as like maybe an efficiency from cloud application?
Hmm. Well, it's here now, and virtual desktops are definitely part of that. For those that have more complex needs, again, if you need to maintain a database server or an application server, yet you don't want to have the networking infrastructure piece on-prem any longer, then it is absolutely possible to move all of that into a cloud environment with a high degree of success. Again, every change needs some management, so people need to understand what some of the cloud computing limitations or tweaks can be, but that can be done. So there's a little bit of just relearning how to access their data, but by and far, that virtual desktop environment mimics very, very well what the on-prem desktop experience brings to the client. So it isn't as daunting as something like that conceptually could be.
Yeah, in the past, it definitely was a little more confusing. I think one of the fun ones that we usually see is, having to always ask, are you on your actual PC or are you
Right.
connected to the remote session, right? I feel like, a lot of people probably even listening to this or watching this have had that issue before, right? Where a technician maybe is trying to help you out and you get them connected to your local machine when you were actually trying to get them connected to your cloud session. So yeah, I think that is really something that is going to be huge. And even, kind of looking at maybe more the consumer side, which sometimes it trickles, either up or down from the consumer side. But what you've seen with like, say, gaming computers, right? On the consumer side, everyone was usually building computers, and now you can actually rent a gaming computer in the cloud. They've got actual graphics cards hooked into these things, and you can essentially, with a good internet connection, play games up in the cloud. And so, from a business application, obviously you may not need that much horsepower, but some people are running CAD. Some people are doing some, just higher level application that instead of consistently having to buy the latest and greatest computer, like you said, now you can just virtualize this, put it up in the cloud, and it's going to be continuous, right? Microsoft's going to be updating their backend infrastructure on, say, the Azure side, to allow for, the same specs to kind of last forever, versus everyone knows that feeling of 3 years into having a new machine, it's slowing down, right?
Right.
With a virtual desktop, I mean, we could even have it where that thing wipes every single day, and the only thing that comes back is really your desktop and documents. So yeah, a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never call it future proof because it's tech,
Yes.
right? It's so fast moving. There really isn't a future proof thing. But cloud isn't going anywhere. In fact, it is where everything is going, and there's a lot of good reason behind that. So I feel like it's just time, right? Just a matter of time before any client actually is ready for it. It's going to be there.
Yeah, and I think the last thing to touch on, just because I've seen it, I think you've even talked with customers about it, is kind of the fear of going to the cloud, right? A lot of people are nervous about file security, or they just don't know, where is the cloud, right?
Right.
It's
I can't look at it.
Exactly. If it's not in their office, then it's potentially not secure. And usually the argument that I use, and maybe you have a different argument as well, is that, again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but Microsoft is spending, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars on security each year to make sure that, everything within their environment is secure. Whereas you're on-prem, yes, you may be being precautious, and you got antivirus and good firewalls, and, you've got policies, but you're probably not spending the type of money that Microsoft is spending to do it. And again, the flexibility just isn't going to be there from, redundancies, remote access, all the things that we just talked through. So, but yeah, I mean, are there any other things that you would kind of just say, a customer of ours or a potential person listening to this that is still on the edge about cloud, what would you say to them to kind of help them make that jump into the environment?
Well, you're not alone in that jump. For starters,
It's been a while since clouds come out.
Yeah, but you're partnering with somebody who's seen this done through many iterations. So there should be some comfort in knowing that not only is it something that we're recommending to clients, but it's something that we've done and utilized for our own business purposes. So, a fear in what's secure and what isn't secure. Well, we hold the keys to the kingdom for all of our clients from, a documentation standpoint. And that is absolutely critical and is secure behind highly secure multi-factor authentication and our own single sign-on and everything else that goes with the security piece of how we can authenticate to access that data. So that is the nature of cloud, is just how secure can it be? And like you've mentioned, Microsoft having the biggest target on their back for any attacker has spent the most amount of research and money to try to mitigate that, and they do a fantastic job at it.
Even though they have the biggest target, most hackers also aren't going to target them because they know the level of security they have in place. Kind of reference you back to, I think it was our third or fourth podcast with Joe from Cyberstone. He actually mentioned that, right? That a small business, most hackers know, aren't spending that type of money. So they are actually going to go after those smaller targets and not the bigger targets. Yes, there are times that they're going to say target a bigger company because there could be a bigger payoff, but these smaller companies are going to be easier targets. So, well, really appreciate you coming on and kind of letting everyone know about, again, how cloud can help in communication, collaboration, continuity. And, hopefully this kind of helps customers realize that the cloud's not this scary thing that, you shouldn't be looking into. It is 100% something that, all of our customers are either already moved to or we're starting to move them to. So thanks again for watching. And if you want to find out more, you can go to 101digital.com. Thanks again.